If I had to describe Amphibia overall in one sentence, it would be a disappointing, aggressively corny, melatonin replacing, okayly written story. Watching this show just feels like this. Amphibia is not a swagalicious story in the slightest. Episode 1 sets up the foundation for damn near all of Amphibia's episodes. There'll be a goofy little conflict that'll be resolved in 12 minutes that happens for the sake of comedy and other things that tie into the characters and themes. But the actual content of these episodes is just garbage because I just don't find it funny or entertaining at all.
My true form would make your human brain explode.
I don't know. I've seen some pretty crazy...
That's not funny. That's not funny. You clowns don't make me laugh.
But humor is subjective, and me finding it unfunny isn't Amphibia's fault. It's my fault and my problem. The first funny joke in this show for me was in episode 7.
And Percy?
Percy's a grubbing idiot!
And in total, out of the 58 episodes, I laughed at like 15 jokes. That's it. But if you found it funny and enjoyed it, I love that for you, and I envy you in a way, because I wish I could have enjoyed it. But 99% of the plot is just meaningless, extremely unfunny, time-wasting episodes to me personally. And in reality, a majority of the episodes are as useless as your typical internet video.
Just got my body done. Dr. Miami, please.
In the sense that you don't need to watch them to engage in the actual story arc. But when you get to that story arc, it still struggles from some aggressive writing issues. So wacky shenanigans happen for 17 more episodes. Let's just skip all this. Oops, wait, small little plot hole. Anne has internet somehow to look up a pizza recipe, even though internet doesn't even exist in Amphibia. Alright, let's skip some more. In episode 18 is where the first problem unfortunately zooms into the plot. The kids go to a combat camp, and they're introduced to boomshrooms, which blow up like grenades seconds after you activate them.
But in the right hands, explosive!
Okay, cool. We skip to the season finale where Willie sets up some boomshrooms and they detonate several minutes later, saving HP conveniently.
Oh no, what a surprise.
This is terribly inconsistent with how boomshrooms are established.
Is that a Hollow Knight reference?
Instantly detonating explosives that don't have timers, and what makes this even worse is that every other time they are shown, they blow up 10 seconds after they're activated, at max. The season finale boomshrooms are the only ones that take minutes to detonate, and they take so long to blow up because it needs to happen in order to push the story in a certain way. That's it. So, what should have happened is that the boomshrooms blow up like 10 seconds after Willie planted them. And that would have caused Anne to never have her defining character moment when she stands up to Sasha, which messes up some other things, but I'll explain more in the character section. So moving quickly past season 2, there's only one thing I want to point out. Why didn't Sprig just latch onto the side of the castle with his tongue as soon as he fell off? It's literally several times longer than his entire body. And it's not like he isn't a quick thinker with really fast reaction time.
You never stood a chance. Oh, my one good eye! Where are you?
That doesn't use his tongue in perilous situations. But we had to have this happen because if not, Anne would have never discovered her powers and been defeated by Andreas here, which changes the plot a lot.
Give him back. Give him
I cannot take this seriously. When Anne's character design is literally a chocolate ball attached to some weak spaghetti noodles with a bush on her head, now let's talk about the giant, destructive, humongosaurus problems in Amphibia's plot. So skipping to season 3 episode 4, this happens.
Ooh. It's written in some kind of ancient language. If only we could read it.
Wait, according to Marcy's notes, it says...
Are you wanking my waffle? Are you serious? This makes zero sense. It's never shown. And Marcy was stabbed through the back. If anything, it should be damaged a little bit. And be in the hands of the semi-human dinosaur king lizard dude. I like how he has the same threat level as... and it's a little plot hole that you might be like, oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, but it is, you funky frog-loving fetus. Anne shouldn't have the book, which means she never could have learned about the runes, meaning she never could have met Mother Ohm, meaning in the final battle against the core moon, she never could have been informed about the spell that was required to defeat the core, meaning everyone fucking dies in a big planet-ending explosion. And that's the correct ending when you fix this plot hole. Everyone should have died, and there's no way around it. This happy, sappy, clappy ass ending is literally impossible, and Amphibia should have ended in a massacre of every single character. And that ending right there makes me feel all tingly inside in a good way. The canon ending is an ending that stems from inadequate writing and the need to end things happily. Also, how the hell can Sprig breathe and not be frozen instantly in space? Whatever. More dumb shenanigans, and we arrive at Season 3, Episode 13, where the second biggest problem in Amphibia is revealed. The prophecy. In Amphibia's case, the prophecy does two main things that make the narrative as unappealing as... I don't know what the writers for Amphibia were cooking up when inserting this prophecy into the story. So let's look into it. The prophecy states,
3 stars burning bright come from beyond to expel the night. Should they fight or embrace the fall, their choice will determine the fate of all.
okay, cool. And Mother Ohm also says,
Well, just a minute. The prophecy doesn't necessarily say you'll succeed.
and she's completely right, but it also doesn't necessarily say that they'll lose. And it explicitly states they have come from beyond to expel the night, aka defeat the core. And it says their choice will determine what happens, and they choose to fight, but of course they had to fight, because if they didn't, it would have been destructively inconsistent with their characters. But never mind that. They win regardless. So this means the entire time the story was built on the foundation that the prophecy was going to pass. And the prediction is 100% correct in every aspect, the core being defeated and the characters choosing what to do. Meaning the entire story was the outcome of the first sentence of the prophecy. Meaning the entire story had no stakes whatsoever.
You triggered my trap card!
How the fuck do you have a story that has no stakes? Let me elaborate. Firstly, stakes are the establishment of a chance for negative consequences to happen, and secondly, the utilization of those negative consequences. For example, let's look at Marcy. She's stabbed by Andreas and supposedly killed, and it's established she could die.
Oh, he did!
Holy shit, and now that stake has been executed. She just got murdered? Oh, never mind, she's alive actually.
Oh no, what a surprise.
Now a new stake is established. She could lose her individual freedom for the rest of her life because she's stuck as a hostage by the core. Oh wait, never mind, she's free now.
Oh no, what a surprise.
Do you see what I'm saying? The stakes are never executed, and we realize with the passing of the prophecy that they were never going to be, and thus there were no stakes. But then you could say most stakes only exist for tension in the moment and not to be executed at all. But then again, the audience has to feel there's legitimacy behind the stakes in the first place. And Amphibia doesn't do that as well as it could. Like the threat of genocide doesn't even feel tangible because they can't even kill off characters.
Fucking die already.
Scene to scene, the audience can see there is nothing to tell you or imply that the prophecy won't come true, because nothing happens that would convince the audience that any of the main 3 characters wouldn't be able to fight, like one of them being wounded to the point where they were paralyzed or something. And when you don't utilize stakes, especially when they're supposed to be utilized, like everyone dying in the ending, well, that's bad writing. And second of all, it ruins the legitimacy of the plot and world, because how can you have conflict that is devoid of inherent risk? That just doesn't make sense. But the prophecy being 100% correct just destroys any possible stakes associated with the situations the main characters are in, making the story weaker than Hitler's drip. By the way, I'm only talking about the inherent risk that comes with external conflicts like injury and death. So you know, the thing that the entire story of Amphibia is based on? But those conflicts can also bring internal risk. Like imagine the internal conflict that would have formed in Anne if Sprig actually died. And you could make the argument that the side character's situation still had stakes, but then I'd say, but seriously, the side characters, they didn't have stakes involved in their conflicts either, because the side characters still had important roles in the plot that directly kept Anne, Marcy, and Sasha alive throughout the entire story, and even in the final episodes of Season 3. For example, Season 3, Episode 1, HP had to stay alive in order to distract this robot that would definitely have killed Anne. Even though the frogs moving in the ice is an inconsistency because the snow episode establishes once they're frozen they become completely inactive and unresponsive. Anne should have died here. Everything past this episode is entirely impossible for Anne, and her dying would have had an insane impact on the entire story. Plus the hoppers should have been frozen in this freezer until they were found by random employees, and most likely taken away by the government and most likely separated from Amphibia forever. Everything in Season 3 is either impossible or should be entirely different. Season 3, also known as 1/3 of the entire series, is a disaster. Okay, moving on to the rest of the side character examples. Season 3, Episode 13, a major plot convenience where this plant, which isn't even shown on screen when they were in the area, just appears out of nowhere that HP uses to save the most important characters in the show. Grime having to be with Sasha in order to prolong the fight with the core, because if not, Sasha most likely would have been incapacitated and unconscious with one arm, like Grime, or just dead. And secondly, the prophecy reduces all the antagonists to the threat level of
I'm the nibble monster, if you were wondering. I like to nibble, and I'm very much scary.
all the established stakes the villains supposedly bring don't actually exist because of the prophecy. One of the main functions of a villain is to be the personification of stakes, and because they do not do that, this makes them nowhere near as effective as they should be, which makes them mediocre villains at best, and makes the MC's victory barely impactful, and that's exactly what happens because the prophecy tells the audience these villains are going to lose. Coincidentally, the villains are the only characters that have stakes executed in their conflicts, with the core literally being destroyed.
Oh my god, punch my mama in the throat, karate kick my daddy in the chest, what the fuck?
Okay, time to determine the plot stat. Remember, I'm taking into account all the issues in the story arc, and the fact that I don't find the useless episodes funny, which is a large percentage of the show. The lessons in the episodes always tie into the major themes of this show, being friendship and family and all the trials and tribulations that come with that, and self-reflection for personal growth, which stems from admitting your flaws and feelings.
Why won't you just let me go? Because I just got you back, okay? And I don't want to lose you again.
And these revelations are always caused by whatever conflict is conjured from the wacky, moron-filled world of Amphibia. All of the action is simply a catalyst for the characters to grow. And to be honest, they're good personal lessons that anyone of any age can learn from and incorporate into their own lives, which I know some of you watching definitely need to do. But overall, pretty well executed lessons and messages. Characters need to be three things: compelling, believable, and purposeful. And Amphibia does that okay, I guess? So Anne obviously is really purposeful. She's the main character and Amphibia's own superhero savior, but I'm afraid her believability is lacking and that she's not compelling. She has constant character growth every single episode, where without fail, she constantly learns the right lesson. A character cannot be as compelling as they should be when you know they're going to reflect and learn the right lesson from every single dilemma they're in, and have no stakes in the situations they're involved in. And even separately from the comedy-focused, unimportant episodes, the challenges she faces and the entire region she is in Amphibia is made extremely uncompelling because of the prophecy. Because if I know how everything is going to go in your external conflicts and that all is going to be okay in the end, that doesn't warrant interest. But also the fact that she saved everyone from dying and knew about the prophecy in the first place isn't believable. Remember the plot hole with Marcy's book? And even her fighting the court isn't believable because she should have died in Season 3, Episode 1. So yeah, Anne's not compelling or believable sometimes. Here are her stats. And this ties into the core as well. It's an absolute monkey. It isn't compelling in the least, and it's barely a threat because of the prophecy, even though everyone should have died. So its believability also takes a huge hit.
You can't tell me this finger animation ain't sexy as hell.
The core technically forced Anne to kill herself, but she came back to life. So it also belittles the core, showing that the antagonist cannot do anything that is truly devastating. Because we can't have permanent visceral consequences that respect our villains. That would be no good. Also, if the core is so intelligent, why didn't it figure out a way to protect its obvious and very vulnerable weak spot? Especially since its actions are rooted in fear, like Marcy said.
Fear. I've been in that thing's head. I know that more than anything, it's afraid of being destroyed.
You're telling me you weren't scared of getting disconnected from your vessel that you needed to keep control of Marcy? All the core had to do was reinforce it with an extremely strong material. Especially since it knew it was going to be fighting people since it had a damn scythe. Like, bruh, why does the core have the intelligence of a fucking chapstick? I can't believe this. The core was such a repulsive antagonist, I now dub all trash antagonists as core level villains. But never mind that, so here's the core's stats. Now, Sasha at first was my girl. I was like, yo, she's a certified badass. Her redemption arc is executed well. However, it stemmed from the fact that she wanted control over her friendship again. But that only happened because Anne stood up to her, which shouldn't have happened until season 2 because of the Boom Shoom inconsistency.
You triggered my trap card!
So, in reality, she should either have been an antagonist for the entire show because it took 2 seasons for her to stop being a meaniehead, and standing up to her in season 2 is the only thing that could have happened. Or she just would have had a really rushed and inadequate redemption, which isn't the best thing for her. But either way, the fact that her redemption starts way earlier than it should have, and the fact that she should have been an antagonist for longer, hurts her believability a decent amount.
Holy hell, why is Sasha's side profile so ugly, bruh?
But she's undoubtedly purposeful, being the power source for the Red Gem among being the leader of the derpy-ass resistance. And she's more compelling than Anne with her manipulation and being evil stuff, cause evil is always more compelling than good. Here are her stats. Marcy, not much to say about her. She's the same as Sasha and Anne pretty much. Her reason for going to Amphibia is very understandable and realistic.
Marcy being forced to be a vessel for the core has minimal impact on her. It's treated no different from the regular thematic displays of character growth from the comedy episodes.
Anne, Sasha, I'm sorry. I was so scared of moving away. The thought of losing you was just so big. I was afraid that if we weren't together, we wouldn't be friends anymore.
She is 13 going through all of this.
No trauma from that whatsoever? Okay, I guess. So, here are her stats. Now, these 3, my biggest problem with them, besides the fact that they're a tiny bit annoying and dumb, is the little trauma thing in season 3.
Sprig can't remember his parents, but can remember the sound of the birds from when he was like 2 years old. Remind you, he's at least 11 years old. Okay, kinda unbelievable. As for Polly, I guess it's not a problem.
And just like every other character, they're not compelling because of how predictable everything they do is. And to me, the lack of stakes of course affects them. HP's trauma actually makes sense though, but I'm just gonna group all their stats together. Now just assume that every other character had similar scores that won't affect the character stat overall. So, let's see what it is. So, I'm gonna add up all the scores for each stat to get the overall level of this story. Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair score that accounts for all the flaws within this story. And that's what I judged it as, a story, and not a product for a certain age demographic. Because kids deserve well-written fiction too. So say goodbye to the lesbian lizards. Say goodbye to Marcy with her Sakura and Bakugo keychain.
And say goodbye to me, you wonderful people.